Why in the world do I think this is the best Windows laptop for a Mac user? Let me explain. Welcome back to the channel. So why in the world is a Mac channel like me doing a review of a Windows laptop over here? It's a head scratcher. What I want to do in this video is I want to go over the features of all this and just show you how cool this laptop is for the cost, right? So stay tuned for that. I'm going to give you the cost and then all the features. It's got a ton of features, feature rich for what you get for the money. And then by the end of the video, I'm going to try to convince you that this is the perfect Windows laptop if you need one for a Mac user. And I'll explain why at the end of the video, including the pros and cons of this laptop over here. So sit back and relax and let's get into the video. This is the Ace Magic AX15 laptop. Let's go. All right, so what does the Ace Magic AX15 actually have as far as specs? You're going to be kind of surprised here, especially at the cost, first of all. So the cost on actually their website is $359 right now, and I'm showing you a picture of it as we speak right here. So $359 is not bad. Amazon, it's $379. See it right there? But you can see in here, it does have a $50 coupon right now. So you can always find these things for about $329 to $359, somewhere in that range. Just look for those sales. Overall, this is an incredible value for that money, and we're going to get into why. I'll show you close-ups as I'm talking here, but the overall shell of this is aluminum on the outside and the back. The inside of it, though, is made out of a plastic. So overall, though, I would rate for the price point, the build quality is excellent for the price point, all right? It's not going to be as good as an $800 Mac over here, a $1,000 Mac, but it's going to be good for that price point no matter what. All right, so as far as specs, you'll be surprised at what this thing has for that money. So it has an Intel 12th generation N95 CPU. That's 4 cores, 4 threads, it's only a 15-watt CPU, so it's actually very power efficient as well. This thing's running 16 gigs of RAM as well, DDR4, which is pretty crazy for this price, 16 gigs. It's also got a 500 gigabyte M.2 SSD in there, and we'll get into some speed tests in a second. So overall, it's pretty incredible. This thing also has a 15.6-inch 1080p screen, and let me just see here, it is IPS, so the viewing angles are very, very good on this thing. The screen is actually really impressive for what you get for the money. I can't complain about this. This seems like it would be in a much more expensive computer. The screen also is about 260, 70 nits maybe. That's basic, off some basic testing. Hard to say. So it's not going to be the brightest, but it's bright enough if you have the power all the way up. Now that gets into a couple other things. The battery. So the battery is about 4 to 6 hours depending on where you have the screen. So it's not bad for this price point either. It's not going to be Mac-like or anything like that. But 6 hours at some point, if you have the screen brightness down, is pretty good on a Windows laptop. This thing also has a microphone built in, speakers, which we'll get into, and a 720p camera here. The 720p camera is not the best, let's just say that. It's not the worst. You could use it in a pinch. Same with the microphone and stuff, but it's really not the best out there. Obviously, it's 720p. You don't get the best colors, but if you have to use it in a pinch, it's on there, and that's good to know for the price point. All right, so overall though, this thing's pretty impressive. Now, it also comes with the most impressive thing is Windows 11 Pro. I mean, just that alone's $150 or something. The Pro version of Windows 11, it all comes included for the same cost. And then just to wrap this up, it does come with a Intel UHD graphics again, so it's not a gaming laptop. We'll get into that in a second. And then it comes with Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 5.0. So a couple of things on the Wi-Fi, which we'll get into. It's okay. It's not the best I've seen, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But for what you're getting, again, for the package price, very good. A couple of advantages also. If you look at the keyboard's a full keyboard. It has a numeric pad on the right, but it's kind of a little unusual because it's not centered over the actual trackpad. So it is a little harder to type on than the Mac over here. The keys are okay. A little bit more squishy than the Mac, obviously. You're not going to get, this type of a keyboard on a $300-something device, but it's definitely usable if you can get used to where the keys are placed, obviously. And you can look at the key, you obviously go do your own research to see how the keys are laid out. But overall, it's a fairly comfortable keyboard to type on. It does have some smaller keys like on the backspace and stuff, which makes it a little bit more difficult. It is not backlit though. Now the ports are also a huge positive on this thing. So on this side over here, we have a TF card reader. We have a USB 2.0. It's basically A size. And then we have a USB 3.0 A size over here. And then basically a headphone jack on this side over here. And then on the other side, and I'll show you close-ups as I'm talking about this. On the other side, we have a USB Type-C, and then we have a USB 3.0. HDMI port, and then a USB-C again. Now, there's two USB-C on that side for a reason. The actual charger over here is very small. You can see it sitting right over here. I'll show you some close-ups of it. But the beauty of this charger is actually USB-C. It's not kind of a weird dongle or anything like that you have to plug in. It's USB-C, so you can actually charge this thing with a lot of different devices that use USB-C charging like this. So that's a huge plus in case you forget your charger or something. And then the biggest positive of this whole thing, and I'll show you a quick picture of this, is you can open this thing up and you can change out a lot of the different features in here. So you can upgrade this up to 32 gigs of RAM. So you can take out the RAM, it's interchangeable, very easy to get to. You can also just throw in another SSD in here as well. So we can talk about that in a second as far as the speed that's in here, but it's got a 500 gig that's included. And the thing that you can even do, one of the coolest things, is you can actually change the Wi-Fi card because you can get to it. So if you know how to do that, that's an option. And we're going to explain why that might be a good idea. Oh yeah, and it does have a lot of active cooling. It does very well on cooling, never gets hot. I've tried a lot of different things with this. So overall, the cooling is just phenomenal with that 15-watt chip. It's got, I think, overkill for the cooling. And then a couple more dimensional things. It's got a 6.1-inch actually trackpad on it, so a very, very big trackpad. And I think the dimensions here, it's 3.67 pounds as far as the weight of it, and it's actually less than 0.7 inches thick. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here in a second and just show you how good this thing is as far as performance. So if you look over here, you can see this is just one of my own websites playing. But if you do things like just YouTube watching and you love doing that kind of content stuff, over here you can see that it works flawlessly, all right? It's going to play these videos without any problem whatsoever, no stuttering, no trouble running them. So 1080p is perfectly fine on YouTube. Even if you move this to 4K, this is only a 1080p screen like I mentioned, but this can play those as well just fine. So you're not going to run into any problems there. We're going to pause that. As far as just going and browsing the web, again, this is perfect for that as well. You can see in here, if I click on certain stuff, the CPU will have no problem loading, pages and everything in the pages like you just see here, how quick it is. So everything in here is going to be super quick loading all the graphics in and everything. So no problem with just going to different websites out there and just trying to look for content that way as well. This thing's also very, very good with any type of Windows application. So if you're basically going to be doing types of word processing, Excel, all those type of things built into Windows, or actually not built into Windows, but you have to buy it separately, but you get the idea, Excel and PowerPoint, this thing can work flawlessly on that as well. You have absolutely no problems whatsoever. All right, so what makes this thing pretty snappy? A couple different things. So if you look at my screen over here, you can see in here that here's the hard drive in here. It looks like we're getting reads at about 529 megabytes per second, writes about 492. So not too bad for the system. But like I said, you can actually add in an M.2 NVMe drive, make it a little bit faster if you want to, if this isn't fast enough for you. But overall, it does make things pretty snappy. One of the areas that I had a little bit of an issue was just the Wi-Fi. So you can change the Wi-Fi card out, but depending if you're behind walls or if you're pretty far away from it, I have like a 200 or 300 megabyte per second Wi-Fi, or I can get that much as far as the speed's concerned. And if you're really far away, I was able to get around 50 megabytes per second, you can see here. And then as I get closer to the screen and get up on it, I was getting my 210, but I got to be pretty much right on top of the router. So overall, when you get a computer like this, you're going to run into a little bit of issues here and there for this cost, and that's one of them. I think, as far as how far you are from the distance and how big your house is, you may have to have a repeater set up to use this really far away. And just keep that in mind. It still works fine, but you just have to be a little bit closer to your router than something like a Mac. In one of my other videos, it had the same CPU. On Passmark, this has about a 5492 score on there. So overall, it performs fairly well. It's not going to be anywhere close to like the newest Ryzen 7s or anything like that. And that means that this is not going to be the gaming machine, right? Because it doesn't have the best graphics as well. So I ran some tests here, and Half-Life 2 and very old titles like Half-Life 2, this was able to get 60 frames per second. On any of the newer titles, you're getting almost nothing, all right? So you're going to be very low on those. So you definitely don't want this for any of the new gaming titles. It's just not going to work good. But if you want to do older gaming titles, or if you want to do something like an emulator, which works really well, you can get close to that 60 frames per second, but it's just not for that. This is going to be for people that want to get productivity done, internet searching, email, just basic tasks like that, and you get a good 5 or 6 hours of battery in there. This is a good overall package. All right, now let's just wrap this up by saying, why would I recommend this for a Mac user, right? Well, first of all, when you buy a Mac, you spend quite a bit of money, and this is going to be the cheapest one you can buy right now. You can get these for about $800, the M1 MacBook Air. Obviously, other computers are more expensive. But overall, why would I recommend a Windows PC? Well, there's a time and a place where you have to use Windows computers, right? There's always that time or software that you need to get, and you just don't have one maybe lying around. This is a perfect complement to it because this is a very inexpensive laptop. You can see that it's around $320, $30, $40, somewhere in that range. has enough power to run anything like internet internet stuff, and you can, just applications in general run really good on this. So if you need it for kind of a burner, Windows computer where you want to go ahead and just do some stuff for work or something, this is a great choice, and you're not breaking the bank. All the functionality is there. It just can't really game on it. So if you're not a gamer, then this is a perfect complement to just buying it because it's only $300 and something, and you have always a Windows then computer in your house, even if you're a Mac user. And that's kind of what I recommend it for, is just being a backup Windows computer in case you ever need that, or there's something you want to do on it that you can't do in a Mac. And this is a great option. Except gaming, just keep that in mind. No gaming on this, except for the older stuff. All right, so let's just wrap up the good and the bad then. So the good is, the number one thing I think is the upgradability of this thing. It's pretty crazy. You can add RAM, you can add an SSD, all that stuff. All right, that's cool. The screen's phenomenal for the price point. The build quality is really good for the price point. Ports are really good. The processor, all that stuff, performance on just basic tasks, really good. That's the pros. The negatives is definitely that webcam. Speakers are okay. There's definitely speakers on here. They're okay. They're not the worst or the best, but I guess for this price point, pretty good. That's one thing there. What else is on here? No backlit keyboard. You may not be able to get used to the orientation of the keyboard, obviously. And then finally, the Wi-Fi is a little, depending on how far you are, it can get lower than you may want it to be. So keep that in mind, but you can change out that card. So at the end of the day, this is just a product showcase, and I just found this and I figured I'd showcase it out to everybody because, hey, it's a good complement to my MacBook. You don't break the bank with it, and overall, I spent enough money on all my Macs here, so I don't need to spend another $500,000 on a Windows laptop over here, and this thing does the trick if I ever need the software. You guys tell me, is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? I love technology. I just do these product showcases because it's fun for me, but I hope people can get something out of this review. It's not even a review, a showcase, just to show you what's available for that cost. It's pretty incredible in this day and age. Even Macs are going down though, so everything's kind of going down as far as electronics, and I just don't know how they do it. All right, we'll talk to everybody soon. Peace.